Well, welcome to this panel. First of all, please introduce yourself and the products you're working on, and then maybe we can riff a little bit on what we all see in this coding agent space, mostly on the infrastructure side. Like what's useful?
My name is Zeb. I run a product called V0. We're part of the Vercel family. V0, if you haven't used it, is a vibe coding tool that anybody in the audience, no matter how technical you are, can use to build real applications.
How many people use V0? Amazing.
Nice.
And I'm Adam Sypniewski. I'm DeepGram CTO, and we build voice AI, text-to-speech, speech-to-text, voice agents.
So, like half the audience used, how many people used V0, Lovable, Bolt, or Replit? Okay.
Basically everybody.
Amazing, like most of you. So, so let's kind of step back on those vibe coding tools and first ask a question. So today, the way I think about V0, and it's probably outdated already, that if I want the best front end, V0 gets V0 got me, right? And then I know that you've added a lot of backend capabilities as well, and so now you can build a full stack app on V0 as well. But in a year from now, what's your vision? Like, where are you going? Where maybe in a year or two, what kind of use cases you're going to see that will fold into that paradigm as well?
So my contrarian take is that anybody who has like a 5-year vision in the AI space is out of their mind. So
that's my one.
A 2-year vision is wild. The thing that has been really exciting in the last 6 months is seeing the level of sophistication of what people are building in these tools just increase dramatically, right? Mm-hmm. Like the initial V0 use case was just building a component, not even building a full UI. Then it turned to building full UIs. Now it's full stack apps. I think that the place that we see it going next is actually more about enabling more people who work at real businesses, is the way, what I call them, to actually participate in building software, right? So today, the designers on my team, they open Claude Code or Cursor, and they contribute a little bit. But the tool that they have is kind of the wrong form factor for what they want to do, which is like look at my marketing site or look at the experience that a user goes through when they publish an app or whatever it is, and make little incremental design changes that will delight the user. We think V0 and a few of these other tools have a real opportunity to basically take the number of people who can build software today, which is 30-ish million developers, and grow that to 50 or 100 or a billion, exactly.
Yeah. So Adam, and what role voice plays in this category?
Well, if you think about how humans and machines have interacted with time, we've evolved, right? We've gone from punch cards to keyboards to mice to touch screens. And as we do that, we get more and more intuitive interfaces, but we don't really get more natural ones. I mean, at the end of the day, people want to be able to talk. That's how we communicate. Maybe in another 50 years, we just, brain to brain, and that's all it is. We'll never talk again. But for now, we talk. And so I see speech as one of the primary modalities we're going to be using when we're designing the systems of the future. When we are vibe coding, or when we're simply doing data analysis, or whatever it is, I want to be able to talk to the system like it's another person. I want to be able to just tell it what I think and have those inputs be affected.
I see. And do you think that everything will start supporting that modality? Like, do you think we'll be in Cursor and then also interacting with Cursor and with voice, or you think there's going to be a particular just category of software with like primary voice, and then we'll keep typing in the others?
There will always be niche interfaces that need to happen a certain way. But I would say broadly, yeah, I think we would expect voice to be an integral part of most applications that consumers are interacting with. But that's not to say it's voice exclusively either. I mean, different modalities work well to do different jobs. That's why like 2-year-olds can go up to a tablet and figure it out, right? It's very intuitive for them, even when they don't know how to express themselves in words. So what I see is a fusion of modalities. We'll have interfaces that are drastically multimodal. I want to be able to go up to an IDE in the code window, and I want to say, like, these lines need to be changed. I want to talk, I want to gesture, I want to be able to have everything at my fingertips for people to just like with a person. Hey, we need to go fix this part of the code. That's what we'll see.
This is what I'm most excited about on the 2-year vision front is software engineering traditionally has been very code-centric, right? Your IDE, you're looking at the code as you're writing it. We've already noticed that people love pivoting between the code and the preview and a visual editor. But what Adam is describing, where you just talk to the thing, we actually see a bunch of users do this, even though we haven't launched our native voice. But what people really want is lots of different other modalities on top of that, right? So being able to view the logic chain of the app that you've created in some sort of N8N or Zapier style workflow view, or being able to circle. The designers on my team really, really want this. They want to be able to comment directly on the page and then send those comments to the AI and see what it comes up with. And so this shift from single modality or each tool has one modality to something like V0 supports 8 or 10 of them, and you pivot between the one that's most appropriate for the job that you're doing. That's something we're really, really excited about.
Yeah, that's actually my bull case for V0, because the Vercel team understands web and web design and just kind of web front-end development very, very deeply. So it looks like in a good position to deliver on those interfaces. So you mentioned that, right? So I want to be able to point at the visual, say change that into something that's you have a vision for, and then the system now takes care of it. The system runs on a particular infrastructure, and first of all, I think that needs to happen very quickly, right? So infrastructure needs to be responsive, and today, if you're a developer, every time you change something, there's a build process, deployment process. There's a flow, CI/CD flow, and typically, sometimes, and especially the bigger the company is, the longer the CI/CD process. Somehow, I don't know how this happens, but it happens. So what are the requirements on the infrastructure, maybe in addition to the speed of deployment that you see, that is putting pressure on all the infrastructure providers to be a certain way, and then the flip of it, the capabilities of infrastructure providers enables you to do your job better?
I think speed is the biggest one, right? A metric I care deeply about is the time to first preview. When somebody comes in and says, build me an app that incorporates this LLM to listen to my speech and then generate me a poem or whatever. It's a common thing people do. I would love for that to take 8 seconds, and it takes 2.5 minutes, right? So it's just a simple one. There are lots of other pieces. You and I were talking about the opening an existing project and the amount of time that it takes to do that. Similarly, people just aren't going to wait around for minutes.
So you said 7 seconds. 7 seconds are a magic number, or 8 seconds?
It feels magic to me. When I get a response from our agent in 5 to 10 seconds, the experience of that. Basically, if that doesn't happen, I go elsewhere and I start doing something else, and then I have to remember to come back. So there's something in that window, at least today. I'm sure 3 years from now, the number will be 2 seconds or 2.5 instead.
Yeah, I don't know. But there's also a tendency to do more autonomously, right? If you so I'm following obviously V0, Lovable, Replit, Volt, and it looks like everybody recently just introduced more autonomy, just in the last few weeks, I think. More autonomy of how much thinking budget you want to give to those platforms to do more. And so how, help me understand the 7 seconds on one hand and then more autonomy on the other, because more autonomy means that there's going to be more work done, and therefore it takes longer.
It depends on the use case. So frequently when people are first building an app, what they care about is seeing the UI of that app, right? And once they look at that and see, their brain can kind of visualize okay, here's how the user pattern, here's what it's going to look like, or actually it got the thing fundamentally wrong, and I said I wanted to generate blog posts, and it's an image generator or something, right? It's just the wrong UI. So that thing I want to happen very quickly. We've seen this failure mode where when the agent goes away and builds the full thing soup to nuts, it takes a few minutes to do it, and it got the initial, basically it got things wrong. People hate that, and the comments they leave us are very frustrated, or they write back to the agent. But what the use case, the time that they really love these long-running jobs is after they've ascertained this is the thing that I want. Now you built an initial page, but I need to have 14 similar pages. Go build those, or whatever it is. There's like deeper things where people are very confident letting the agent run for 10 or 15 minutes or an hour at a time. I think the challenge on the product side is just like routing, choosing the right, making the right choice for should I be fast or should I be full featured, and then basically doing that on behalf of the user, right? Like a bunch of people have made choices where the user has to enter each time, like this is how long you should spend, or here's a budget or something. And we basically don't believe that those approaches are particularly user-centric. We want to understand the preferences of our users such that we can like make a choice for them, as opposed to making them set a bunch of parameters basically before they submit the task.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Adam, you want to add?
Sure. Yeah, I would say that what you're facing is really a human factors problem. I mean, broadly, I would classify response times for systems into 3 categories. You've got first batch mode. This is like back in the day. You submit your job to the compute cluster, and you come back a day or 2 or 3 or whatever it is later, and hopefully you'll have a result and not an error. So you got batch stuff where you're willing to go and have something work, and you are ready to change your attention to somewhere else. And that's exactly what you want when you're doing these things like, okay, I believe you understand, you system know how to work, and now I want you to go do this 14 times. But the next one is an interactive one. This is like the 1 to 10 second time scale where it's magical because your attention can remain on the topic at hand. After about that 10 seconds, your attention's going to start slipping. You're going to get bored. You're going to start thinking about something different, and then now the magic is lost. And like that's kind of the worst case, because now you're wasting time, right? You changed over to something else, and 10 minutes go by before you realize, oh yeah, I should go back and check that problem. Well, it finished in 45 seconds, but you didn't actually get to focus on it. And then the last one is real time, where you have to respond usually in tens to hundreds of milliseconds. And you see a lot of safety devices, like you have an autonomous vehicle. If it has to slam on the brakes, it better do it pretty quick. I don't think we're at that point where we need that for AI, but that interactive case, we definitely need it for building alongside agents.
So so first, let me ask a question. What sucks? Like what does suck right now from that interactivity standpoint? Like, what are you missing? You feel like it should be quick, but it's not. Like it's like annoyingly slow, but it shouldn't be.
I would say that to some degree, there's almost like a problem with jitter. Like, what is the spread of the latency you expect from a system? If the AI 80% of the time responds like 5 to 10 seconds, but that other 20% is going to take 30 to 40, 50 seconds, it's a really frustrating experience because you never know if you should go do something else. And so having a really consistent experience, I think, is important to kind of not only just engage in the user, but really building trust that this is a platform that they want and understand how to engage with. I think that's also challenging in a world where we have come to treat AI as the cloud. It's just like it's always there. It's infinite. There's as many GPUs as you possibly want. That's just not the reality. If you're going to reserve them, then you've got a finite budget, and you want to use it, but you also don't want to like run out and have to queue things. And so there's a very difficult infrastructure problem to solve there too. So I think one of the biggest problems is just having a consistent interface. And I'd say the other one is kind of harkening back to what we were talking about earlier. It's hard when you don't have this multimodal aspect. When you're trying to mock up a UI and you're like, I want to say this thing, but now I've got to think about it. It's like, okay, I want you to edit the sidebar on the left that's above this section. You just hope that it'll get the right thing. You can try taking a screenshot and circling. You're like, I don't know if it's going to figure out what I want. And I'd say that that's frustrating, especially when it got something wrong. It's like, okay, you did what I wanted, but then you broke that thing over here. So how do we roll back parts of this? I think that these are all part of some of the real challenges we have to deal with.
Yeah, on the note of the rollback parts of this, one of the things that's really beautiful that's happening now with these tools is people are exploring lots more different options for how they could build something. And so this common pattern we see is somebody like, I have this striped dashboard or something, right? And I'm a product manager, I'm a designer, I want to recreate some part of it. I'll do an initial exploration, I'll realize like, okay, we're going to add this new aspect, or we're going to change this aspect of the design. And then from there, I want to do 10 or 15 different versions of it. And it turns out if you have a database associated with your thing, it gets really challenging to actually revert to a prior state. This is something I'm really excited about bringing into V0 from your product. That like snapshotting view, it just changes the whole experience of that PM or designer, like somewhat technical person that is in this kind of like exploration mode, where they go from being challenged constantly, where they like do something interesting and then they try and revert to a prior version, it just doesn't work, and they can't really understand why, to basically that problem disappears, and it's something they don't have to consider or interface with.
Very cool. Thanks for the shout out. So we were talking about like the new things on the infrastructure that didn't exist before, and now they're fairly instrumental. The two that we've been discussing in our conversations, and obviously Neon and Vercel are partners, so that's why like this is the first time. This is not the first time we're talking, but there's this new category of software that is a sandbox, and containers exist, VMs exist, micro VMs exist, Kubernetes exists. Like, why do we need a sandbox? Like, why do we need this new thing?
The fundamental thing that we realize at Vercel is agents are writing code that you can't trust, right? And you need an untrusted code execution environment. That's the like reason we took a raw VM and basically built a sandbox on top of it. But especially for products like V0 or Cursor, whatever it is, so much code is being generated, and so much of it is not trustworthy. So you want to make sure that it's constrained in a way that that's safe.
Yeah, and I would say that you really need something incredibly lightweight when you start to go from a single user building something to wanting to build collaboratively with others. They're going to want to take where you're at and quickly make changes. Well, will you continue to either branch and make changes, or are you working on it live together? And so having the ability to work in sandboxes so you don't just like destroy other people's work, be able to roll back quickly, be able to spin things up in milliseconds is all very important.
To your question about technical limitations, one of the ones we're running into today as we move towards V0 generations running on a sandbox by default instead of in the client, is visual editing is not fast enough, right? It's like very, very hard to have the 20 millisecond response time that a user expects when the actual sandbox is on a server somewhere. So that's one of the challenges that my team is actively fighting with today.
The other thing that that came up is just the availability of OpenAI, Claude, reserving those instances. And another kind of infrastructure category showed up in people's mind is AI gateway. Can you guys comment on like, why do you need one? Can't you just go to Claude?
I mean, from what I've seen, just from my own experience, but with watching other people, is that it's really important so that you can actually just try a lot of things. You don't want to have to sit there and be like, okay, I want to try this model, but I need to now like, use yet another SDK or integrate with another API that's just gonna. It's one more thing that you need to maintain. It's one more thing that's gonna break when you're trying to develop. But on top of that, there's also, I think, a lot of value today in playing models off each other. I don't want to see just what Claude said or just what ChatGPT said. I kind of want to see both. They have their pros, their cons, their strengths and weaknesses. And usually then I'm like, okay, well then what do you think about that response, and vice versa? And so I think there's a lot you can get from being able to play the models off each other. You learn a lot more, and I think that it's really important to the iterative process. And so having API gateways makes that really seamless.
Yeah, we found exactly that. We think a lot about error fixing, right? As good as Sonnet or GPT-5 or whatever it is at writing code, they still come up with lots of errors. And the error fixing loop, it turns out if you pass that error to a different model, it is much better. And if that model doesn't solve it, you pass it to a third one. That is a fairly trivial thing to do when you have a gateway. But if you're a developer and have to like go integrate each of these things soup to nuts, it's just a pain to do something that should be easy.
What's the uptime of those things, by the way?
So exactly. So the challenge that I have with the gateway is very different. Like I spend many, many millions of dollars on tokens from different providers, and all of them have degradations constantly, or have whatever. We keep finding challenges with Vertex or AWS or whoever it is, the specific way that they have instrumented the Asana model as an example. And I want the ability to just immediately reroute my traffic to whatever provider is performing the best at any given time. Specifically, what I'd most want is the gateway to monitor things like time to first byte, right, or first token, and just auto reroute my traffic. This is something.
So is it just performance or is quality?
What do you mean by quality?
So performance meaning like speed. Is it the speed, or are they just down? And so that's when you want to reroute traffic, or the quality of the response degrades, and then you detect it with some
Yeah,
sort of.
we've seen every single one of them, and it happens like 3 times a week or something. So this is just like a constant battle, is like trying to make sure that the app isn't degraded because one of our providers is degraded. And we're smart about routing to a number of different providers and being able to move between them. But this concept of a gateway that just like takes care of 95% of that for me is very, very exciting.
So Adam, with voice, I think a year ago we were all thinking, would voice be interactive and when? And I think we're there, right? So now another year on voice. Where is the battle right now? Like, you're obviously models improve, and then in a year they're going to be better. Which dimension of they're going to be better you're the most excited about?
I think the biggest gain you're going to see is in latencies. Like if you want to go and build a voice agent today, you're going to find some transcription provider, you're going to find a language model, you're going to find a speech generation model, you're going to start piecing things together, and before you know it, the thing will respond every 5 seconds, and it's terrible. It doesn't feel real. The magic's lost. If it can't respond with the same sort of interactivity that a human does, you're just not going to believe in it. You're not going to want to use the product. And so I think that really doubling down on latency so that you can have this really great, smooth user experience is going to be a big part of it. And I think being able to move to full end-to-end speech models is going to be great, speech in, speech out. But at the same time, there's a lot of challenges that are associated with that because people know how their LLMs behave. They know what kind of prompts they like to use. And they know how to put on guardrails when they want the guardrails. And these are the things that we'll have to think really carefully about as we build full end-to-end models for speech, because it's not as obvious exactly how you're going to be driving these things and directing them. And so I see a lot of improvement in end-to-end speech models. I see a lot of improvement in the latency for the user experience.
Very cool. We have a few more minutes left, so now is probably a good time to take some questions from the audience.
So, question for Nikita. The title of the panel is Reasoning Machines, but I didn't hear anything about reasoning, so what did I miss?
Code is reasoning. I think that's probably the simplest answer to the question. I think that's why when we build foundation models, there's a tremendous amount of code that goes into the training. And generative code is reasoning. That's my short answer.
I'd also add that, especially because we're focusing specifically on vibe coding and vibe Xing, there's a certain degree of laid backness about this. You just want to chat with it. But that has limitations. So how do we humans reason about systems in a much more colloquial way?
Mm-hmm.
We saw no-code, low-code platforms kind of get stuck at CIO adoptions, being like, these are toys, this is great for organizing the company picnic, but I'm never going to create an enterprise application on this. How do you see vibe coding or coding agents overcome that, or do you see it's going to stay kind of lighter applications rather than deep enterprise apps?
It's a great question. I think basically the market is kind of splitting, like one of the analogies we use, into a Figma versus a Canva, right? There's not a lot of professional designers that spend all of their time in Canva, but there are 350 million active monthly users, something like that. It's an amazing product and company. Similarly, I think a lot of the vibe coding tools are want to be the Canva for vibe coders, right? And deliver on a promise that Bubble and Airtable and many of these earlier generation things couldn't really, because I think they were the wrong modality, back to our modalities conversation. I think there's another side where people want, it's basically real businesses want applications that are more sophisticated, and frequently they also want developers to contribute to those. So the direction we're taking V0 is more so enabling tens of millions, basically bring in a new wave of people who consider themselves developers, as opposed to trying to create this like walled garden bubble type experience, given the in the past, what we've seen from those tools that tried to keep everything contained is basically exactly what you're saying. That like, hey, this isn't enterprise grade. This is only a toy, basically. We think there will be lots of room for toys. There's already amazing toys that people are creating. Somebody just sent me a tongue health toy app that somebody vibe coded on V0 today. That's amazing. But the like opportunity for us is much more so broadening the set of people who consider themselves developers and the types of applications that those people can create at real enterprises.
Yeah, I spent some time researching the space. So basically, like before vibe coding tools, we had Zapier retool, kind of Power Apps. Power Apps, by the way, is a very big business for Microsoft, like $4 billion or something. But we have kind of low-code, no-code tools that are there to build internal apps in the enterprise. And then we had UiPath, which is CIO sale, that the company went public and much higher revenues. And then Zapier retool would bump into that ceiling and failing to make that transition into the CIO sale, which UiPath was doing, but kind of under-delivering on the last mile. If I'm one of those companies, I'd be terrified about vibe coding.
Yeah.
First and foremost, I'd be terrified. And then the only way to do it is to disrupt yourself. And so I know that they're either working on this or they'd be stupid to not be working on this. So that's kind of one. Two, I think code gen is absolutely inevitable, and every like we enter in the fast fashion era of SaaS, as Sam Altman tweeted. And vibe coding tools are that. That's the vehicle in which those things will be delivered. Then we're going to have V0 that allow you to eject out of the what you've built into a professional environment. I think that's my understanding of the strategy so far. And then you will have tools like Replit Lovable that go into the Convoy direction. Like they basically consumerizing themselves as much as possible, so a non-developer can drive value. But between those tools, I see very little space for no code and low code of the previous generation, because code gen is just kind of disrupting this.
I have a question to Zeb here about degrading models. Do you work with providers? Do you discuss it with them, how to solve it, how to deal with that? Because otherwise it's just so unstable.
Grading models?
Degrading models. The models that degrade.
Can you give me an example?
You were talking about the models degrading every week.
We give if you look at our shared Slacks with any of these providers, it's 50%. Like, here's the pattern that we're seeing with how long it's taking for us to get a response, or often it's something that's supported only on a single provider that should be a feature supported by all of them, right? We provide lots and lots of feedback there. But I think the challenge that I run into today is it's so manual, right? It's a lot of smart people on my team finding the problem and escalating it to their team, when I would love for much more of that to just happen automatically, right? Like it should be fairly trivial for me to write the rule to just reroute the traffic anytime we see these types of patterns, and today it isn't. I'd even love to get to a point where we automatically pass that as feedback to the provider, right? As opposed to doing our monthly check-ins or all the different ways that we send them emails and Slack messages just to let them know that their product ran into more degradation issues yet again.
I was inspired by the last question actually to ask a different one. When it comes to these model providers, you're kind of at their capabilities of like how they support function calling, how they support agents and tools. Do you have any kind of partnerships with these companies in terms of like, hey, we really want to be able to have agents run in this way. Here's the types of tools that we are imagining, and kind of co-building, or how does that go down in practice?
The teams are very interested in working with us on it, and it is hard for us to prioritize that. The challenge is that it is very good for the model provider companies, and it is slightly good for me, right? Like me, Replit, Lovable, all these different tools are built using the same base models. So if I help GPT-5 get better at design, which is something they're super excited about partnering with us on, that flows through to the whole ecosystem. I would love for them to work on it. I did spend half an hour articulating, I want to preview back in 8 seconds, and here's the level of design that we aspire to. But we can't, it basically isn't prudent for us to spend our time like in the weeds day by day helping the model providers rebuild or improve the base models.
Let's do one more, because I saw so many hands.
Hi, I do a lot of vibe coding workshops here in the Seattle area. Would love to work with V0. But question, kind of Nikita referenced it at the beginning. There are a lot of different providers in this space. How does V0 think about differentiating itself? Or do you think everything is just going to eventually converge to this is a model or this is a platform that can do everything for kind of the citizen developer segment?
It's changes very quickly. So the differentiation 6 months ago is different than differentiation 6 months into the future. One of the biggest places today that people are excited about us is that because we're part of the Vercel family and we're built on top of Vercel, we are a much safer product. So to give you an example, there's all sorts of different patterns in insecure deployments where people try and publish with an API key that's public or database that's insecure, whatever it is. Vercel automatically blocks all that stuff. Similarly, access controls and permissions. The security side of it matters a lot to big enterprises. And when a lot of the other vibe coding tools are like a year old, they just haven't had the time to build all of that. The second piece is really around like, do we want to be a consumer product that people can build toy apps in? Or do we want to be something that very elegantly ejects, basically like generates component code that your engineer can copy and paste into the thing, or a landing page that you can publish and just actually use? We're really excited about, back to the point of like enabling the next generation of developers, not building a toy that keeps things in its little garden, but rather being something that lets a lot of people who, when they open an IDE, they're scared, but they want to contribute to an actual marketing page or whatever it is, letting them have the tool that they need to actually be able to participate in that product development process.
All right. Well, Adam and Zeb, thank you very much. And let's give a round of applause.